Hello and welcome back to the Puncher's Chance podcast, and welcome to the review show where we have a look back at, of course, Chris Eubank Jr, Connor Benn, and the rest of the card that weekend, and a massive heavyweight fight that has been announced. Now, normally I start these podcasts off by jumping over to you guys and letting you say your piece, but this week I've got an apology to make to a certain Connor Benn, because I said there is not a world in which he outboxes Chris Eubank Jr. I said the only way he'll beat him is a puncher's chance, and he's made me look daft because he's done exactly just that. So I have to get that out the way. Congrats to you, Connor.
Congrats to me as well.
Yeah, for getting the prediction right on it. But
I called it.
This is why I hate doing predictions, because I don't care. But when Ben wins, he never lets it go, does he?
That's not true.
Well done, Ben.
Do you remember the one time he got the Katie Taylor one right?
Yeah, I don't remember that.
He kept bringing it up for months.
Listen, that was years ago.
But what did we make of the fight? What did you make of the event? All that good stuff.
I thought Connor Benn obviously was way better than the first time, and to be fair, Chris Eubank Jr looked completely drained of the weight, and yeah, it was surprising, to be honest, how sort of one-sided it went. I think I may have only given Eubank Jr a round at most, but I think you really seen on Saturday night how much they had both sort of taken and how much of an effect that first fight had on the both of them, because Eubank Jr went into that first fight, yeah, he was, in terms of the weight, probably wasn't at his best, but the experience of being in those big fights, I think, benefited him a lot more in that first fight. And with Connor Benn, I did say last week I didn't think he'd be able to keep his head as much as he did and stick to a plan as much as he did. That did really surprise me, but I think that showed how much he'd taken from that first fight. He went into that one in April having never headlined a show as big as that, never fought in a stadium. And like he said, he didn't stick to the game plan. He fought on emotion. And Saturday was completely different. He showed a whole different side to him in terms of boxing to instructions. His jab, I thought, was brilliant from round 1 to 12. He looked like he could have gone for a few more rounds, and Eubank Jr looked as if he was spent completely after round 1.
I think when they weighed in, I think the first message I put into the chat that day was, am I reading that right? How far Eubank came under the 160 weight. I couldn't believe it. And then Ben was heavier than him. I was thinking, okay, so maybe this time around he hasn't got the weight right and he's coming very, very light. And listen, like Ben said, he looked drained. He looked like he had no energy. In parts didn't look like he wanted to be there. And I think he found out on Saturday night that he hasn't got it anymore at 160. And it was a harsh learning curve for him, because it was probably the biggest fight of his life because of what's to come. The Canelos, the Terence Crawfords. Ben Shalom said it perfectly at the weigh-ins to TalkSport. He said he can forget about that if he can't beat Connor Benn, and he couldn't beat Connor Benn. Connor Benn was miles better, improved so much since that first fight in April. And you could see from the ring walks how calm Ben was, jumping around with his dad Nigel, and Chris Eubank with 50 Cent looking even more relaxed. But I think deep down, Chris Eubank Jr knew that it wasn't going to be his night. He knew that his time at 160 has run out. And for me, it felt a little bit like, I don't know if you boys watched it back in, I can't remember how many years ago, on ITV Box Office. They had James DeGale against Chris Eubank Jr. And it literally looked like a replay of that fight, in my opinion, that James DeGale looked shot. He didn't look like he had it anymore, and he was exactly the same on Saturday night.
I agree to a degree, but I don't think Eubank Jr is shot. I don't think you can say in that brief period between the first fight and the second fight, suddenly he's completely over the hill and just so far away from the level he's previously shown. In the first fight, he landed 360 punches. In this one, he landed 60 punches. That is not an output of a man that's 6, 7, 8 months, whatever it is, down the line. That's a man who has seriously made hard work of a weight cut. Is drained, is weak, is wobbly. From the first round, there was nothing behind his punches. And to be fair to him, he took some absolute bombs from Conor. obviously got dropped eventually towards the back end of the fight and, held on. But, he weathered some pretty big shots. He just looked slow. He was constantly trying to land that lead hook and was miles off the pace. Conor was able to get out the way comfortably in straight lines and come back in. I know at the start I said massive credits to Conor, and it is. These two things can be true at the same time. But he beat a very poor Chris Eubank Jr.
Incredibly poor.
The Chris Eubank Jr. from the first fight, I think still beats the Connor Benn from that fight. I just think he was miles off it.
I thought Connor Benn was a lot better in this fight.
It's hard to say though, when your opponent's thrown, but like
did any
1/6 of the punches they landed in the first fight. It's like
Did any of you give him a round, Chris Eubank?
Yeah,
maybe
one. Two, I think. I think I gave him the fifth and one other. I can't remember.
What I'd like to argue is a lot is going to be made in terms of the weight cut, and he was humble in defeat Eubank Jr. He said he lost to the better man on the night, and he said he'd give her his all. I think we will hear more in the coming weeks and months about maybe how that weight cut went, how the camp went, and how his mindset was going in to that first fight, because he might come out and say, look, my head wasn't there. And when you're in that type of fight, if you're not 100% committed, then it's a dangerous place to be. And obviously with what's happening in his personal life as well, he just found out that he was having twin boys before the fight. So you don't know how that alters someone's perception in terms of looking at the fight. But he did look very weight drained, but also he knew what he was doing. He knew what he signed up for. He'd already done it once. There's an argument that he shouldn't be fighting a 160 at all. He should probably be a 168 fighter. And the reason he doesn't want to fight the 168 is because he can't compete with fighters at his natural weight. So he boils himself down, as he has done for most of his career, to fight fighters that he will be naturally a lot bigger than. And regardless of what the weight cut was like, realistically, should he be losing to a fighter that's climbing 2 weights to come up and fight him?
Yeah, no, I don't think he should. And it's not, I'm not making excuses for Chris when I say that, he looked dreadful. And I just do think, you can't in 7 months fall that much in quality without there being something foul at play. That's not just a natural decline with age.
But it's
because it was miles. And I think as well, you say he was bigger, and he was obviously bigger than Conor, but Conor looked so much stronger than him. And it was that classic, when he was falling to the ground when Conor was kind of wrestling in the clinch, and you just see there's just no energy there to stay up. So I actually think he probably did quite well to stay up and in the fight as long as he did. But Conor boxed perfectly to what he had to for what was in front of him. Absolutely perfectly. Did what he had to do. Looked really quick. Like you said, the jab was impressive. So I think you can simultaneously say that Conor was impressive and Chris was shocking.
But also in that first fight as well, you've got to think it was close in terms of, I think the last couple of rounds swung it for Eubank Jr. And I think that was more down to the fact that the way Connor Benn decided to fight absolutely emptied his gas tank. And coming off, near enough 18-month layoff from any sort of competitive fight, to go into your first fight headlining a show, a massive event, and the way he fought, I honestly feel if Connor Benn from Saturday night was the same Connor Benn that was there for that first fight, I think he wins on both.
Do you think? I don't know. Chris landed 16% of the punches from that first fight into the second one. That is a huge drop off. Conor was able to be so good because he didn't really have to worry about what was coming back the other way. I think, I think, I don't know. It's a difficult one, and we can go on with it. We'll never know. We'll never ever know how good or bad Chris was, how good or bad Conor was, until maybe 2-3 fights down the line for each of them, where we'll be able to say, well, actually, Chris went on to beat X, Y, and Z, or Chris went on to lose to X, Y, and Z, and therefore probably was way past it, and Conor went to lose to or beat X, Y, and Z, so actually he was very, very good. So I don't know. And I generally saying all of this, and I've been quite critical of Conor, both in the last episode and this one, I think he gives Barrios, if that's the fight they're going to try and make for the WBC, an unbelievably good fight. I think that's a very viable shot at a world title for Connor Benn, which, to be honest, 12 months ago is probably something that you'd have been laughed at for saying.
Yeah, I think the one thing we can agree on after that is we don't need to see a trilogy between the two. I think that's where you end it.
After Saturday night, I think there's an argument that you can make that they shouldn't have even had the rematch.
I don't know.
The way it played out.
Yeah, but maybe.
We talk about in boxing, we talk about fighters taking damage, putting miles on the clock.
But would Chris have been any different against anyone? So if he chooses to fight, then
is that?
I don't think Chris Eubank would fight anybody else after a Connor Benn one fight because there's no money in it. I think it was, you touched on it last week. He probably had a word with his accountant and he went, "These are good numbers."
Yeah, but I don't know. I think I'm more glad we saw the second fight now that Conor put the performance that he did than I would have been if I think what I thought was going to happen, which was Chris is going to walk it.
I just think Eubank was looking at either I do the rematch with Connor Benn at 160 where I'm probably weight drained, but the alternative is I go to 168 and fight some of the monsters there and I'm probably going to be beaten. So I think he fancied his chances more at the rematch with Connor Benn rather than trying to go up to what should be his natural weight probably at this point and try and take someone on there.
Yeah, quite possibly. I think so. And I think...
Do you reckon he fights again, Chris Eubank? Or do you reckon that's it?
I don't think
he does. I don't think he does. And I certainly do. I think he would be more inclined to want the trilogy fight because I think, the money's there. But it just doesn't make any sense for Conor to take that fight, especially because you've beaten him. You've proven you've beaten him. You've beaten him by such a vast margin, that you go on and you get the big fights that come off the back of the fact that you have beaten Chris Eubank Jr. rather than trying to do anything else. And not to mention, like we said, the beats him comfortably, but then that one scorecard, what was it, 116, 110
shocking.
Is outrageous with the knockdowns in there as well.
That's 114, 112 without the knockdowns.
That is one round in it is outrageous. I mean, I'm as sympathetic to Chris as I think anyone can be, and I gave him 2 at best.
That's it's not
2 at best. I think 1 at best would be even more.
I think there was 2. I was scoring it, and there was at least 2.
11
I think there were a bit.
I give it.
Yeah, and I think it was a totally reasonable scorecard to give it, but
when I seen 116, 110,
laughable,
that's
really.
Mad.
I wasn't even listening to the scores because we knew who'd won.
I was sat there going, it's funny how he's celebrating you, but they haven't actually announced the scorecards yet. Imagine there was this whole scene of Connor Benn celebrating and they go, split decision, Chris Eubank.
Outrageous it would have been.
And see, that wouldn't have been the biggest uproar in boxing this week.
I don't know. I reckon it would have been pretty bad.
I don't know. Something that we're going to touch on later could be even bigger.
I'm not sure. Onto the other fights on the card. Obviously, Essuman, Jack Catterall. I think it's fair to say we were robbed a little bit of the last couple rounds with some controversy that what was shaping up to be a phenomenally interesting finish to what was a brilliant fight. With the controversy, Essuman went down. From was it a slip or it wasn't from a punch. And then the ref tried to step in. Essuman stands back up and is hit with a 3-shot combo while the ref's trying to step in. Was given no time to recover, albeit didn't ask for any, but didn't give none, and was stopped about 30 seconds later, 10, maybe even less in the 11th. What do we make of that whole controversy? And then, of course, the actual whole fight.
Yeah, I was really disappointed with the way it ended because I haven't actually seen what the scorecards were at the time of the stoppage.
They haven't released them. They haven't released them. No, I keep checking.
That's what I was looking forward to seeing because I thought Essuman was really coming back into it in those last, 10th round stoppage?
11th, I think it was.
11th. So you still got the rest of the 11th round and the 12th round. That could have been the difference maker on the scorecard. So I'd be very interested to see what the scorecards actually were.
Yeah, I had a look on. They're not on BoxRec. I haven't been able to find them on Twitter.
But yeah, and I feel like Essuman should have probably been given some time, to recover after that. It was a bit of a mess up there more than anything else. But
and part of why I'm disappointed in it is because I think Jack Catterall was hugely impressive in the opening
really good
portion of that fight and deserved to be able to beat Essuman and say, I beat Essuman, no asterisks, no question marks, or what it was shaping up to be, which, like you say, was a really close end. And I think if Essuman had picked up that 11th, and then I think the 12th probably would have swayed it, or either fight at one end, it could have been a really close fight regardless. So I think, I think it's a shame for Jack that does have that kind of question mark hanging over it, because the work they did in those first 4, maybe 5 rounds were hugely impressive. The best we've seen of Jack Catterall in a long, long time. Holding his feet that little bit more, punching with a little bit more spite. But then Essuman, he is inevitable, isn't he? That energy. You've seen him, he'd been knocked down not long before, and he's practically running across the ring to cut off Jack Catterall and keep up the pressure. It's we said it was a great matchup, and it proved to be.
And I feel like after his fight with Harlem Eubank, I think he needed sort of a response. He's gone over the pond to Philadelphia, and I honestly thought it was sort of a different version of Jack Catterall that we haven't really seen before. I think it's his first stoppage in 6 fights.
A long while.
But it was great to see him back out, and obviously had that disappointment, like I said, against Eubank. But for him now, again, how many times have we said this, that Jack Catterall was on the verge of fighting for a world title? I think if we go back and listen to this podcast that we started, 3 years ago, I think we'd be millionaires if we had £1 for every time we said Jack Catterall's on the verge. His next fight's going to be a world title fight.
First stoppage since 2019, I've just seen.
Mental.
It's in Wembley Arena.
6 years.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. 6
Who
years
was
on
it
6 fights.
It was against Oscar Amador, 10-17.
Was that before
Amador
Josh Taylor
suffered
won?
a broken nose. No, it was Lumber. Two fights before that.
Okay.
So yeah, it was a while before. Yeah. But yeah, he has been hugely impressive, and I think when Essuman was really pressing him and doing some great work, Catterall almost reverted back to the mean a little bit, and I think more and more time he spends with the guys with Bozy Ennis, he'll get closer and closer to a more complete fighter and a fighter that can genuinely compete at world level.
And let's not forget as well, Essuman came in form. He dethroned the King of Scotland, a former undisputed champion in his backyard, Josh Taylor, a number of months ago. So for me, I thought he was favourite in this fight, and I think we all went for Essuman to win on a points decision. I think it's just good that Jack Catterall's come out and gone, it wasn't a statement. I don't think you can make out that it's a statement, but to have a new trainer, to put in a performance like that under a new trainer, I think is showing good signs moving forward.
But if there wasn't that controversy in the 11th and he'd gone and turned around that fight again,
exactly. Well, we'll never know.
Stopped him, that would have been a statement in its own right. So it's that frustrating kind of what could have been, and also what could have been for Essuman if he'd kept up that momentum. We'll never know. We were robbed of a certainty and a fight that was brilliant. I really enjoyed it.
To see it again, to be fair. I thought it played out near enough as how I expected it to. I thought Catterall would start strong, but I thought that engine would just take over in the late rounds. I thought he'd nick it on points, and I thought that really is what we were going to see. But yeah,
he is phenomenal, isn't he? Inevitable Essuman. He keeps coming, and he breaks you down. It's really impressive. Adam Azim, Kurt Scobie, not so much to talk about. Was phenomenal.
Azim looks so good again.
Like, I don't know if I was watching on the official DAZN stream rather than a dodgy one, and sometimes it's hard to tell on the dodgy one. New. But the punches didn't look real. How quick they are sometimes. Just horribly whipping.
You blink and you miss a 1-2.
Yeah, and it's like that inevitability. The fact that he keeps it up throughout the entirety of the fight. By the time he gets those 10-11-12s, it's not a surprise that he's stopping people like Sergey Lipinets and then Kurt Scobie in this one, because you just can't keep receiving that damage. He doesn't seem to blast people out of there with this one big punch, but it's just attritional. And over the course of a 12-round fight, no one can take that kind of damage.
Yeah, I'd like to give credit to Kurt Scobie as well, just for being brave enough more than anything to stick it out for as long as he did, because he was basically getting a beating for pretty much every round. But
until the last 15 seconds of each round, he'll come,
but
quite funny.
Yeah, fair play to him. But as we said, Adam Azim I just thought was brilliant, and he's going to be in so many exciting fights coming up. I think he's going to be in some big
give us that Dalton Smith fight.
That was my exact thought.
Dalton Smith, please beat Sobriel Matias just so I can have that Dalton Smith fight.
That's 2026, surely.
Yeah, It's such a good fight as well. And do you know what? Whereas 6-7 months ago, maybe a year ago, we'd have been saying, that's Dalton Smith's fight, that's Dalton Smith's fight. Now it's kind of like,
yeah,
which way did it go?
He's learned, ain't he? Sergey Lipinets was a... Well done.
What are you laughing at?
Well done. You're such a child. Like I literally clocked you say 6-7. I was like, oh no, what's he doing?
Don't know what you're about it, mate.
How old are you again? Forget about that. No, but that Sergey Lipinets fight was like his sort of the biggest win of his career. Saturday night was his like big stadium event. He was meant to fight up in Barnsley in a stadium show and his opponent pulled out. But it was just good to see him back out and like you said, his hand speed and all that. It makes, for me, that Dalton Smith fight, if they make that in April 2026, a lot more competitive than if it was made this year.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And then just to sort of wrap it up, Richard Rackpool, hugely impressive against Tommy Welch. Looks levels above.
How he made cruiserweight, the way he looks now is unbelievable.
The shoulders and back on him is a joke.
He's a beast. Fair play.
Yeah, he looked pretty damn comfortable against Tommy Welch. Not much of a competition there. Ishmael Davis done very well to beat Sam Gilly, I thought. Really interesting. Probably... No, I was going to say Essuman Catterall probably is, but the bar that close second as fight of the night, it was a really enjoyable one. And Mikey Talon, impressive once again. All round good stuff. Which was your pick of those?
I think Richard Rackpool, because like I said, how he made cruiserweight is just mental, and he's growing into this heavyweight division now. And listen, I don't think he gets past domestic level, but there's so many good fights domestically that he can get matched up against. So it's going to be a really interesting 2026 for him, especially at that sort of domestic scene. He could probably forget about world level, but domestically, there's some cracking fights for him.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was glad I seen after in the post-fight interview, he said that he's looking at the domestic scene. So it'd be interesting to see who they set him up with next. But you could get some pretty good all-British heavyweight fights, I'm sure, with Rackpool involved. But with Ishmael Davis as well, really good story for him coming off 3 losses in a row to get that British title. That was a massive moment for him and has given him a chance now to continue his career. If he had lost that fight on Saturday, you don't know where else really he goes after that. But yeah, I think we said last week it was great to see him get his sort of moment in the spotlight after he's continuously thrown himself at every name that's been given to him. He's not shied away from anything. So yeah, it was great to see that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then a fight that we've
been stalling it for so long.
We talked about possibly getting, and then we said, no, it'll never happen. And then it looked like it was going to happen, and then it didn't look like it was going to happen. And now it's been officially announced. We're getting, and I can't believe I'm saying it in this order, Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua on a Netflix show. MVP, it seems they've spent a hell of a lot of money to get him out of fighting on DAZN for a night. We're seeing it. Where do we start?
Do you know the most annoying thing?
What's that?
The fight poster is all going on online. Judgment spelt wrong. Jake versus Joshua. I think it should be Paul Joshua, but a little rant there. But what the hell are we doing? Is this really what boxing has become now? A former 2-weight heavyweight champion. Ben's like this. Come on, Harry. Come on. And he's fighting a YouTuber.
Mental.
It's unbelievable that it's boxing. It's sad. I'm sad, and I'm thinking, how have we got Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua before Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua? It's mental.
That is exactly what I was going to say. If you could go back to 2050, I was talking, was it last week I brought up the Eddie and Christmas list, but if you went back to then and you said to boxing fans, you're going to see, well, Jake Paul wasn't even nowhere near, I think he was
2015, he was probably still on the Disney Channel.
Yeah. You point out that random kid and go, he's going to be fighting AJ before Tyson Fury is, and people would just think, what is going on? Like, what is boxing become? And I don't think it's going to be a popular choice for hardcore boxing fans, but it's going to bring in some serious numbers.
Oh yeah, we'll watch it.
Netflix are going to love it. Boxing casuals are going to love it. Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua's bank accounts are definitely going to love it. But
that's the reason why they've done it, as far as I'm concerned, for AJ.
Yeah, I think so. I think absolutely. And let's. I think one thing we haven't said so far is, and I think it's important to get this out of there. Jake Paul is going to get absolutely flattened on December 19th. He is going to get flattened by Joshua.
If it's not over after 2 minutes, I think just throw the towel in.
He must be getting paid some serious danger money.
But it's 8. That's on the poster, it's got, I think it's 8 3-minute rounds pro heavyweight.
Yeah, it seems like it's getting sanctioned, which I don't know if it would.
Has also got a weight limit at heavyweight of 245 pounds.
It's like the UFC.
See, yeah, but AJ doesn't. He comes in a little bit heavier than that, but
it's going to be around 240 to 260 normally anyway.
I was going to say it's not a million miles out of the range of Anthony Joshua anyway. Let's have a quick look. What he weighed in versus Daniel Dubois. He weighed in at 248, and Ngannou, who's a bit heavier, was 238 against Otto Wallin. Yes, so that's not really outside of the Anthony Joshua weight category anyway. That's not a huge amount.
I know that we need to balance this sort of argument of the fight.
Do we?
Jake Paul's fighting an active boxer now. That's the only thing that you can go at Jake Paul and go, fair enough.
But
that's where it ends, in my opinion.
But I think what they get with Anthony Joshua is someone that is so ludicrous as an opponent that really you write it off. Anything he does in this fight beyond getting splattered within 30 seconds is a relative success. And so from his point of view, he goes, yeah, I lost to a world heavyweight champion. Like, sick. Like, so would you.
Yeah.
To basically half the world. There's what, 7-8 people in the world who wouldn't probably get beaten by AJ.
It is a win-win for him because he's going to make a stupid amount of money. Yeah, he's probably going to get knocked out if it goes the way we all expect it to. But yeah, he's going to get, as I said, paid a lot, and he's going to go, well, you're all going to lose to Joshua anyway. I've got in there now against a credible former 2-time heavyweight champion, tested myself, and then he's probably going to go on to pick up more big paydays on some other Netflix box. I don't know who they're going to give to him next now, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
It is impressive as well. Like, you got to say, like, the cojones to get in there with Anthony Joshua. You know, I'm like that. Not many people will say, yeah, go on, I'll fight a former world heavyweight champion, and not a former, a long way out of it, very much still in the fray of the heavyweight scene. Like, not many people would do it. You've got to give him some credit. If
they're paying me that kind of money, I'm more than that. If they need to step in on December 19th, if Jake Paul then is ill that week or whatever,
we'll fly over to Miami. Yeah,
I'm sure I can fill out this.
They're doing a press conference Friday as well.
Yeah,
which is how they.
You have got to give him some credit for just positioning himself to somehow being able to get this fight.
I have no issue with Jake taking this fight. It makes complete sense for him to want to do it.
For Jake, yes. For Anthony Joshua, it's like...
It's a shame AJ's doing it, and it's a shame that, someone like Matchroom is, negotiating for it to happen. But equally, like we often say, for AJ's point of view, they're all prize fighters. Realistically, whoever they put him in there against at the back end of this year was always going to be a tune-up fight. It wasn't ever going to be anyone who's going to pose him any genuine risk. So
yeah, but we thought that was going to be against a sort of fighter that, I don't know, Johnny Fisher's fought, Dave Allen's fought, but on their sort of comeback sort of fight.
If you're going to be fighting a nobody regardless, you might as well get paid millions for it, and it not be a nobody, it just be a lesser fighter. So I can see why it makes complete sense for them to do it. Cash out while you still can. Get that Tyson Fury fight, which Turki has pretty much confirmed he's going to try and do everything in his power to make at the mid to late next year. So
who am I to say to someone, look, you shouldn't take this fight? He's making an absolute fortune. But for me, this may ruin Anthony Joshua's legacy.
No.
I think it does.
Why?
Fighting a YouTuber.
Yeah, but he's an Olympic gold medalist.
Fighting a YouTuber.
Yeah, and he's getting paid a stupid amount of money. For any other heavyweight in history.
Ignore the start.
You could go back all the way to
money.
Yeah, but it is about money. That's exactly why he's doing it.
But I think it ruins his legacy for fighting Jake Paul.
For you? So do you think in 20 years' time, you go,
you could be remembered for this.
If your kid is going, right.
He could be remembered for fighting Jake Paul rather than winning an Olympic medal, a world championship.
But do you know what doesn't change?
The money in the bank.
No, the fact that he has won an Olympic gold medal.
What I mean is, for the wider world outside of boxing, that are the fans of Jake Paul, all they're going to remember Anthony Joshua for is fighting Jake Paul.
I don't know, because for me, Anthony Joshua, he's lost to he got brutally beat by Daniel Dubois in Wembley. He lost in emphatic fashion to Andy Ruiz in a huge upset at the time.
His only other time fighting in America as
and
well.
Yet still, I look at AJ as the man who won in Wembley, the man who carried the UK to Olympic gold, the man
and now
who...
this is what he's doing.
So no, I think regardless, I will look back at AJ as the AJ of great rather than the AJ that cashed in against a YouTuber.
I think it's going to add to his legacy in a different way because, as you already said, he's an Olympic gold medalist who carried British boxing, has been involved in some of the biggest British boxing nights that we've had in the last 10, 15 years. Yeah, this fight probably isn't going to be regarded as the best on his resume, but you're looking at it in terms of the spectacle and what it sort of brings in terms of eyes to boxing and the money he's going to make from it. And then after that, probably going to be involved in what will be the biggest British boxing fight of all time if they can get him and Tyson Fury together, coupled with the fact he's a 2-time heavyweight champion, could be a 3-time heavyweight champion by the time he finishes. In terms of everything, if you look at that in 20, 30 years' time and in terms of a career and how that stacks up against people around him, that makes you remember that is the legacy he's going to leave behind.
He also, this is the same AJ that cleaned out an MMA fighter who dropped Tyson Fury, and you only have to take a minute looking at our Instagram comment section to suggest that Tyson Fury getting dropped by Francis Ngannou hasn't, been a drop in the ocean in terms of where people see his legacy. People still vehemently defend him and his career. So I think AJ will recover just fine from the fact that he's going to knock out Jake Paul.
What happens if he doesn't? What happens if
then that's
there
a
is
different
chance,
conversation.
There is a chance that on December 19th, we will be watching this in the middle of the night. We could have an absolute nightmare and Jake Paul beats Anthony Joshua,
that's not gonna happen though, is it?
man that hasn't won in America. So
it's not
going to happen. But just imagine. Can you imagine the faces of Eddie Hearn going, "Oh my God, what have we done here?"
But I
just
think
imagine it probably won't happen.
It definitely won't.
I'm going a bit extreme there, but just imagine.
I just think I refuse to entertain it because it's just not a viable thing. I think I'll wake up the morning that happens and I'll have £5 million in my bank account. I'll look out the window and a piano will be flying through the sky. It's just not happening. This isn't a world we live in my opinion anyway. And I'm more than happy for Jake to go in there and prove me wrong. But I don't think he will. If Jake goes in there and runs for 8 rounds, then equally I'll be going, well done. Like I'm not impressed by that. So
he's the man waking up with all the money in the bank account.
And after AJ gives him a big right hand, he might be able to see a piano flying for a bit when he wakes up with a headache. But
to be honest, as long as we see Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury next year, that's all I care about. That's
agree.
what I want.
But what happens if we don't? So say now
it'll be a real shame if we don't see that
he decided instead of fighting Fury.
No, but it won't be instead of fighting Fury because this fight won't happen.
Is it
because they won't be able to?
I almost feel like it's
they won't be able to
already
make it happen.
Did Turki Alalshikh say though he's fighting in February, AJ? So this could literally be a sparring session.
He's fighting in February in Riyadh, and then they're going to try and make Tyson Fury AJ in the UK. Is what Turki Alalshikh said.
I hope so. Otherwise, he's going to be, I think, remembered for fighting Jake Paul.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll have to wait and see. And have a look back at it in many years to come. But it's happening either way, whether we like it or not. We're going to watch it either 100%. Way, whether we liked it or not. And
100%, because we all want something to happen in that fight, don't we? We all want to see something happen in that fight.
Harry's just scared that Anthony Joshua is going to knock out his childhood hero.
Yeah.
So
that's
what he's panicking about.
Mate, Logan Paul. Let's not get the Paul brothers mixed up. It wasn't Jake, it was Logan.
Fair enough. It's
And he beat Floyd Mayweather. Oh, I'm not better about it.
Big rabbit hole there. I think that just about wraps it up for today's episode of The Puncher's Chance. Didn't go where we thought it was going to go at probably 8 o'clock this morning when we recorded this before this news was dropped. But if you did enjoy it, then stick around for later in the week where we'll be previewing Ring 4. That's Benavidez Yard, Devin Haney, Brian Norman Jr. and the rest of that absolute belter of a card. So stick around for that.
Boxing.
Subscribe. Spotify if you prefer the audio episodes, and we'll catch you all later in the week.
Puncher's Chance. Puncher's Chance podcast.